Today, I present to you the ultimate Thor guide. Is this class worth building? Or is it just trash? We'll be going over some of their skill utility and where I think they might be the most useful. I happened to get very lucky with refining, and made this 15 hammer with just the free ones included in the bundle to unlock the class. Then I rolled a morale 4 roll on my first 10 times more enchant. I really wanted to skip on this class because it was forced lightning damage, but since I was this far in, I decided to roll some S runes as well. So, here we are with another class guide. Let me go over if Thor is worth building. I think it is helpful to understand how his skills work in order to analyze where he might be most useful. All hero classes pretty much require you to have the maximum level of their core passive in order to achieve their full potential. Thor is no different. The base passive lets you deal wind damage to one random enemy when channeling. You can see the hammer flying around and hitting things as you pass by. Level 4 is pretty much mandatory. It allows you to cast other skills while you are channeling. Without it, the class is basically unplayable at a high level. Level 7 makes your channeling uninterruptible, which is essential if you're planning to use Thor in PvP scenarios such as GVG or 6v6 arena. Aside from the core passives, Thor also has some other unique effects that make him interesting. Elemental Sense boosts Thor's wind damage reduction by 30%. This may sound useless, but when you read the second line, you see that it also allows you to convert all non-wind elemental damage into wind if you have the storm barrier on. You can do some interesting things with this, such as using Dokivi card to increase survivability, or use Wind Reflect card. Power Fluctuation allows Thor to deal random damage between 50 to 300%. Increasing strength and luck will allow for overall higher damage numbers. Hypercharge allows Thor to apply an electric charge debuff, which stacks up to 5 times. When enemies with electric charge approach each other, they receive HP loss damage based on the luck stat. It also affects the duration of Lightning Cling's debuff, which we will talk about later. Holy Authority makes it so your weapon can't be removed or destroyed, which is particularly useful in PvP. Now, let's go over the channeling skills. Thor can channel one skill at any given time based on what he needs. Lightning Power is your standard damage buff that increases your wind damage significantly. Make sure you have this buff before any big fight. Rolling Thunder is your standard DPS skill. It casts 2 electric arcs per second, each dealing forced wind damage to one random enemy within 8 meters. The number of electric arcs increase every second you continue channeling this skill. Combined with the Thor's Arrival passive hammer, you can pump out some serious damage. Holy Resonance is your healing skill. When channeling, it will restore 10% of max HP and SP per second. It also reduces the cooldown of job skills. All of these channeling skills can be cancelled by clicking the skill icon again. Next, let's review the active skills. If you've reached level 4 of Thor's Arrival passive, you can now cast Thor's active skills on top of your channeling effect. Lightning Cling is the most interesting. It puts a ball at the target location and tows enemies within 5 meters to the center. I've tested this against Edgar card, and it still seems to draw people in, regardless of endure. It reduces the attack and cast ranges of enemies caught in the tow by 60% and reduces their move speed to 100 for 3 seconds. Duration can be increased by 1 second for each electrical charge they have on them from your Hypercharge passive. Ultra Lightning works like a blink dagger in other games. The first cast throws Mjolnir at the target area, dealing a decent amount of damage. If the skill is used again in 5 seconds, you will dash to the area where the hammer is located, dealing damage one more time to enemies along its path. Trial of Storm is an AoE nuke, but has an added effect of revealing hiding units. They will be unable to hide again in the next 5 seconds. The last skill is Storm Barrier, which greatly helps with the survivability of Thor. It absorbs damage equal to 30% of your max HP. Additionally, it converts 10% of your damage into a shield that can stack on top of each other. The shields last for 20 seconds and cannot be cleared by removal spells. It also allows you to proc Hypercharge's HP loss effect on an opponent if they are near you. So where is Thor most viable? Personally, I think this is more of a PvP class. Certainly, with the high DPS potential and constant shields from Storm Barrier, it can clear a lot of PvE content. But it just doesn't compare to the survivability of classes like Ragnarok, who has anti-fatal with divine wing armor and sustain from lifesteal built in. Also, he can do decent single target damage, but does not actually do very good AoE damage since the lightning passives are hitting one random enemy at a time. Because of this, it tends to do poorly in situations such as Airship, Oracle Dungeon, and Endless Corridor that has higher mob density. On the other hand, the unique abilities like Toe from Lightning Cling and high single target damage lends itself well to PvP content. So, let's go over a PvP build since I think this is where Thor will be used the most in the future. So here is an example of my standard gear setup. I use Basilisk Star, Resentful Bongan, and Dark Siren MVP to achieve a huge boost in medium monster damage and ignore physical defense. It also provides easy access to Lord's Aura buff. I use Eggshell Buoy headwear mainly because I have it at plus 15, but you can swap this for more damage increasing gear such as Holy Knight Blessing. But there are also a lot of other unique ways you can build Thor that might be even more threatening. For one, you can consider changing out the Dokibi armor card for the Wind Resist card. Since all incoming damage is converted to lightning with the Elemental Sense passive, you can actually make a Reflect build. Combine this with Deathcat Cape to become Cancer to Thanatos. Another option is to go Poison build. Thor needs to pump a lot of luck stat because of how its damage mechanic works. This means it naturally pairs well with landing Poison debuff. You do need to invest a lot of items and card slots like Chimera Star and Ninja Card to maximize the build, but it can pump out some insanely high damage if able to land Poison reliably. Similarly, you can go Freeze, Stun, or Combination Status build. Freezing sounds great since it would allow you to do double damage and bypass enemies using their own Dokibi card. However, a lot of people run high freeze resist nowadays. The last thing I'll mention is cooldown reduction gear. Storm Barrier helps provide a stackable shield using 10% of your damage and lasts for 20 seconds. However, the cooldown to recast the skill is 24 seconds long. This means there is a 4-second window where you are left vulnerable without Storm Barrier. Using gears like Arcane Codex, Sins of the Living, or Fate Wheel to get this under 20-second cooldown can provide infinite Storm Barrier buff. In fact, that is what I use for my PvE Thor since the only time I die to bosses is when Storm Barrier is down. Here are my Shadow Gears and Oracle Mirror enchants. I generally focus on increasing damage output. The area I think that has a lot of room for variation is the Ancient Relics. Personally, I go with Golden Spirit Boat for no miss since Thor has terrible hit rate. This also allows me to not have to focus gears with increased hit or dexterity. Another option is Crystallization Armor so you can't be reflected. People may try to use Heart of Darkness or Reflect gear against Thor if it becomes meta. Otherwise, HP Relic and True Sight are always useful options. You can also use Chaotic Blade if running a status or freeze build. Here are my stats. I go Heavy Strength and Luck for maximum damage potential. The rest go into Vit to help with Storm Barrier shields. I leave Dex at 0 since we have the No Miss Ancient Relic. If you don't have that option, you will probably need to pump some Dex, in addition to using items like Freoni card. You can also even out your stats with some Int if you are getting statused too easily by opponents. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I think Thor is a very interesting class with the potential to be the new metaphysical DPS for the next season's 6v6. There is more than one way to build the class, but only time will tell which one will prove to be the best. Until next time, see you later.